we are now going to launch into our state of digital media, and I will advise you to be prepared. We're going to get through a lot of material here, and we're doing it in a rapid fashion. So I'm going to have my partners, Mark Greenbaum, Brian Anderson, and Dick Filippini, join me to walk through this deck. We're calling it the State of Digital Media, and if I can get this thing live, we will go through it. There we go. So our agenda: ecosystem considerations, market update, significant industry trends. Heck, just on this section alone, you could write a book. Yes. Okay, good. Here we go. So ecosystem considerations. It seems everywhere you go, everywhere you read, digital advertising is a disaster, right? You wouldn't know that it was growing over 20% a year when now even the general publications are talking about issues like transparency and measurement, latency, header bidding, privacy, viewability, fraud, ad blocking, walled gardens, and fragmentation. My God, it's enough to get you depressed. Taking a look at these issues, sort of forced rank them because we think some of these are important issues. By the way, in case you're wondering what transparency looks like, yeah, that's transparency. Just let that sink in for a second. And by the way, when you go to the voting booth, right, just think about the image on the right. Yeah, angry. Yeah, okay. At any rate, like I said, we've sort of scoped out these issues and grouped them. You've got serious issues, absolutely, especially the privacy one, because consumers are in control. We've got critical issues that we're going to talk about, and what we would call existential issues for the industry. So we're gonna go through the bottom half of this list. So viewability, fraud, and ad blocking. As you know, we're famous for putting together graphics that help understand and explain a story. Think about the life cycle of a media impression. Here we go. The blue on the left represents every time a page is loaded or a video is loaded, right? So those are all available media impressions. As we know, some of them do not get ads served against them because they're blocked due to software that the consumer has downloaded. The rest is basically ad spend. And what's interesting here is that if you a portion also, of course, is viewed by machines, bots in the Eastern Europe somewhere, and so not a human is not seeing them, and obviously that fraud traffic is bad. Another portion, by the way, is not viewed by humans; it's delivered to humans. But the humans don't see it because it was not quote unquote viewable. Now the interesting thing about this is that whether an ad is viewable or not viewable all depends on your standards. And these vary, right? YouTube says 4 seconds, Facebook says 3 seconds, Snapchat, 1 second. So that's why the line between viewable and not viewable is very, very fungible and dependent upon your definition. Then of course the rest are, make their way, get viewed by human beings, and that's an impression. Some of them are just that, an impression, which, by the way, may very well work for branding because you're sort of, sinking that in for future consideration. But for DR or for action, then you're going to have a smaller portion that gets engagement, and then a smaller portion still that is conversion. So now if you think about this from an economic standpoint, you've got the marketer pays for all of that green swath, right? The publisher only gets paid for everything that wasn't fraud, and the consumer only sees what they see. So again, analyzing the economic impact here, the marketer quote unquote lost value is the addition of fraud and non-viewable ads. In both instances, they've paid for something that they didn't get. The publisher's lost value is ad blocking, obviously, that's a lost revenue opportunity, and fraud, because that check is not coming to them, it's heading to Belarus. So again, this image we think is a great sort of graphical way to depict these three issues, and I suspect, yeah, go ahead, tweet away. That's gonna become like a LUMAscape like image. What we suggest, we don't have all the answers, but what we would suggest is that, pick up the pace, whatever solutions be utilized, that they do so with the principles in mind. What do I mean by the principles of the marketing equation? There are only two: the marketer and the consumer. Everyone else is an agent. Yes, publishers, your agents. So whatever be done has to be done with these guys in mind. So, draconian measures to force consumers to do this or that, not going to work. You have to respect the consumer. And by the way, much of this whole ad blocking situation came about because the industry did a pretty poor job of creating a positive consumer experience as it relates to advertising. We believe that the move towards performance is a good thing. It obviates some of these issues. If you only pay for a business outcome, much the way Facebook is positioning itself in the market today, and to a lesser degree Google, because it's largely in the search side, a click performance, then a fraudulent impression doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. You're not paying for impressions, you're only paying for conversion. We think this is net a good thing, providing you've got the closed loop attribution to ensure that, in fact, you were responsible for the action. And so we're calling for a death of the proxy, or at least a proxy that's more closer tied to what the marketer ultimately wants to have accomplished. Okay, and then the existential issues. My gosh, we started talking about this 4 years ago at DMS, this notion of the walled garden, how Google and Facebook were building walled gardens around their data, not content like in the 90s, but data now, where not only have they propagated their first-party data on premises, but they've now devised a capability to go off premises. And we will see, by the way, whether our friends at Verizon, with their bid due later this week, will in fact add to their walled garden and try to create the third one. But it is, make no mistake, it is a two-horse race. Incredibly, 85% of all incremental digital ad dollars go to Google and Facebook. Let that sink in for a second. 85% of all incremental dollars go to Google and Facebook. 15% is for the 3,500 companies that make up the rest of the ad ecosystem. Pretty incredible. So as it relates to fragmentation, just to sort of borrow from another theme, winter is not just coming.
Winter is coming.
Winter's here. And we've seen that in terms of the pullback of venture. Mark's going to be talking about that in a second. In fact, Mark Greenbaum will now walk you through that right now.
Thanks so much, Terry. So quick market update here. We'll just take a quick second to redefine that market in which LUMA is focused. It's that intersection between media, marketing, telco. Of course, that and technology, that's digital content, marketing technology, and ad tech, all that kind of seen through the wrapper of mobile. So, where are the markets? The public markets, I think both ad tech and marketing tech we've seen have struggled a bit. Stock prices are down more. Significant, though, multiples have come down meaningfully. And this is in the context of rising revenues. No one would know you've seen over 25% revenue growth. So kind of begs the question, where is the value going in the ecosystem? Well, two names account for a decent chunk of it. Google and Facebook are up $250 billion just since our last DMS. Let me let that number soak in for a second. For $250 billion, you can go out and buy Procter & Gamble, and that's the biggest advertiser out there. You could even have enough left over to pick up WPP, the largest agency, and about $5 million left over to, pay LUMA's fee for arranging the transaction, of course. So the IPO market, let's talk about the IPO market. Yeah, I'm kind of looking for the IPO market. I think if you look back to where we were a couple years ago, pretty robust pipeline between both ad tech and martech, and we've all seen the announcements, of large private rounds being raised, IPOs being pushed back. I think we'd go so far to say, really no IPO market to speak of right now. Shifting over to state of venture funding, we did see things peak out about Q3. Winter definitely feel like it's coming here with a precipitous drop-off. We've seen funding down 29%, but impactfully, valuations we've seen come off 70% from where they were peaking out at Q3. So a very different venture capital environment. That said, you have seen a number of leading players in the space still pull down significant financing rounds. And I would say if there is a bright spot here, if we look to the M&A markets, this may sound completely self-serving, but look, we don't make up the data, we just report it. M&A markets continue on a pretty robust pace, across all sectors, on track to be up from last year. And we've seen that activity across the entirety of the strategic buyer LUMAscape. So very active. And the probably most encouraging sign we continue to say for the ecosystem is that we've seen that pool of buyers continue to expand, not just the usual suspects, more and more players from outside that world. Drilling down on that just a bit, the telecoms have been very active in eyeing ad tech, and why I think they're looking at leveraging data, subscriber information, dealing with new revenue streams on the network. We've certainly seen the M&A activity support that premise with 14 deals just here announced, billions of dollars in transactions. And we've been in active dialogue with all of these players and know that they're all eyeing the space. And if you just look at, we've got 15 or so telcos listed, add that up, that's 3.5 billion subscribers represented. So, just about half of the world's population. I think our prediction there is we're going to see more to come. Great. Let me hand it back to Terry here.
Thanks, Mark. There's our market update. We're going to go through now some significant industry trends. And here is our top trends. We're focusing on programmatic, mobile, content 2.0, convergent video, and ad tech, martech conversion. First, programmatic. Look, it's no surprise here that the growth of programmatic, eMarketer, the company that I call is in the business of up and to the right, just because I've never seen a graph go down on eMarketer. What will they do when it contracts? So they've actually had to revise their hockey stick about projections of programmatic up. Every year they have to revise it up. It's growing faster than they thought. And then every year they're like, oh shit, faster still. So we saw a massive inflection point in 2014. We continue to see growth in this market as sort of data-driven, software-enabled, targeted media buying becomes a majority of all digital spend. And fortunately for us, the way companies are getting there, how they're garnering these capabilities is not organically. They're not building it, although Eric Johnson, I'm sure, will have a point of view on this. They've done both, build and buy, but many of the companies have in fact made acquisitions in order to accelerate these efforts, and we thank them for that. And there's a real reason why they're doing this, right? In programmatic, just compare the business model drivers, growth, operating leverage, and predictability are the three things we think investors look for. Now compare media with SaaS software models, and there's no wonder why people want to migrate towards software. The growth is much higher, the operating leverage much greater, with gross margins at much higher, and really, really importantly, the predictability of the spend makes investors comfortable, which is why the market has rewarded these companies with vastly different valuation measures. I mean, we're talking 30x the multiples between IO-based media and SaaS software. Where does programmatic sit? It's kind of like a merger of the two, where you've got the high growth, as we showed, you've got the high gross margins because of the pass-through of media. And on predictability, while it's not contractual predictability like the software companies, it is sort of de facto predictability because of that tight connection between spend and results. In fact, think about it in terms of how the marketer looks at this spend. Think about search spend, right? Every search marketer spends the efficient frontier of keyword buying every year, every month in, month out. In 2009, when we went through a grave recession in this country, it looked really dire. Media spend on every single media channel went down, except search. It went up. Why? Because of the tight connection. And when you can accomplish that tight connection between spend and results, which we believe display and video and mobile and native will all migrate that way with programmatic, you effectively change the nature of the expense from a discretionary expense to a cost of goods sold. And by the way, when that happens, there's a lot of upside there if you can be selling a cost of goods sold. Okay, and now Dick Philippine is going to walk through mobile.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming. We always appreciate it. We'll touch on a couple of trends that we're seeing in the mobile space now, but quickly wanted to thank a couple sponsors, Celtra and Circulate first. So we've made a lot of progress in the mobile advertising market of late, but just to set the stage, it wasn't very long ago that this was the ad experience that we saw. You'd be trying to kill a pig in Angry Birds, and some low-cost phone company would be barking at you to check out your ad. Nobody liked that experience. It wasn't targeted, it wasn't relevant, and it's not surprising that that was really holding back the industry. Fortunately, some smart people have thought about what is the right mobile ad experience. You can't just port desktop ads or television commercials. Chartboost did a great job early on of interstitials that had a native look and feel to them. You can notice here that there's a wrapper around the ad creative that incorporates the artwork from the publisher's app. They were also thoughtful about when do you show the ad and letting people quickly dismiss it. As native and video have taken off, people have had to think about how do we reinvent the ads? How do we think about what's the consumer's mindset, what's their modality? And specifically within in-feed, if you're looking through your news or your friend feed and you're getting a video shown to you, you're holding the phone vertically. That's not how most videos shot, so it has to be altered. We have very short attention spans, so the time in the video has to be cut. And it's a jarring experience if you're looking through your friend feed or news feed and something starts blaring sound at you, so default is mute. This has become best practices within in-feed ads, but that's not necessarily the only format that works. You have to think about what's the experience and what is the user doing. So if you're in a gaming experience, you're typically holding the phone horizontally, and you do have the sound on. So rewarded video is seeing a ton of growth there on the gaming side, and it's a great opportunity to monetize the 95% plus people that aren't buying IP in games. Importantly, a couple of these people here, Maria from Chartboost and Mia from Celtra, will be on panels so you can get their views later on. So here's an example of rewarded video. This is actually a client that Mark and I worked with at KingBot. So in their game, you can buy currency to help advance through the game. Depending on what the bucket is, you're spending 3 or 5 cents per unit to do this. So over on the right corner, you can see there's an opportunity to engage with a brand and earn this without having to pay for it. You can watch a video and get 1 nanopod, so 5 cents maybe, or you can do deeper engagement and get a bigger reward. So you could go to The Economist. That's essentially $20 there to probably get a trial subscription. You got big brands in here like Burger King, et cetera. And some of these things are pretty meaningful, upwards of $40, $50. This works really well. Unity, the mobile game development platform company, ran a survey of a couple thousand players and developers recently. They found that over 60% of players are engaging in ads for an in-game reward. And it's not impacting the developer side either, because there's virtually no impact from a retention standpoint or an IAP spend. So it's a win-win-win across consumers, publishers, and advertisers. And an interesting thing is it's not just game guys now. You're starting to see non-game advertisers come into it. Here's an example from Pandora, where you watch a 15 or 30-second clip, and you get an hour of free Pandora. And for those in the back that can't see this, fans love it. There's someone tweeting at Taco Bell that they're amazeballs for giving them a free hour of Pandora. As we were starting to go through this, Terry's asking me, why are all these slides gaming oriented? And it's because games have been the dominant part of the ecosystem. From a revenue standpoint, they still are. From a time spent, as well as they've been some of the most sophisticated marketers. It's starting to change. In the most recent Flurry data, gaming time spent in games has been down about 1/3. It's being replaced by messaging and social. It's up over 50%, and that's definitely dominating time spent right now. Messaging has become the buzz. This is the year of messaging. People are in the press all the time talking about the potential of AI, chatbots, conversational commerce. There's a range of different players pursuing the opportunity. All of these guys have scaled audiences. They've initially focused on specific geos or demos, but will all start to expand over time. So the advertisers are starting to experiment. How do they play in this market? And it can be as simple as Minions-themed keyboard, which is a super powerful branding opportunity if you can convince consumers to integrate your icons into that super valuable real estate that you use all the time on the keyboard. Emoji is pioneering interactive emoticons or emojis. So instead of sending your friend the coffee emoji, you can send a Starbucks one. Help Starbucks spread the brand, but also have it be clickable so they could click through to an offer or a gift or a pin on a map to show where you'd like to meet for coffee. I particularly like the Snapchat stuff. This was another client of Mark and mine that Snapchat bought and is creating the lenses. I particularly like the Snapchat stuff. This was another client of Mark and mine that Snapchat bought and is creating the lenses. You can hold your phone up to your face and have augmented reality bring in some new filter or creative in the picture. This is a campaign from Gatorade on Super Bowl Sunday where that's Serena Williams, you'll get eye black on your face and you'll have the Gatorade bucket dumping Gatorade on you behind you. This got 160 million views on Super Bowl Sunday with average engagement of over 30 seconds per. So it's a really creative, innovative way to take advantage of the unique capabilities of the mobile device and have a new type of ad experience. Brian's talked about the phone being the remote control for our lives. Click a button, click an app to access a range of different services. Very powerful, and the messaging guys are starting to turn their attention here to try and integrate these services into their platforms, become more platform-like. Makes a ton of sense given how much time we spend in these messaging platforms. And WeChat, Tencent's brand in China, has transformed from a basic communications app into a cultural phenomenon. It's a really important part of people's daily lives over there. And beyond just sending your friend a message or engaging in social networking activity, you can book a cab, you can donate to charity. There's a range of different services that can be incorporated into this platform. And then you see whole categories of people. Like there's kids now that never use email, they only use messaging. So it's a natural customer service channel. If they're not on email, you're not going to be able to send someone a note that says, here's when your shirt's going to arrive. So they're doing it in the messaging experience. That's an opportunity to engage beyond just the customer service, upsell, et cetera. This is from Facebook's F8 conference where they're launching this sort of stuff in Messenger, and you can re-engage after the fact and let someone know that something that they had browsed is back. We will have people talking about that again on the mobile marketing panel. Kik, who's innovating here, more top of the funnel brand building. Sephora is running campaigns with them, helping people understand what it is Sephora that does as opposed to the customer service piece. But this is, obviously a tremendous opportunity, but it's a great responsibility as well. This is a very personal space, and you don't want to turn people off. If you're too talkative, if you're sending irrelevant messages, people are going to mute you. They're not going to focus on your app. So you've got to have the right message at the right time. And some of the mobile engagement companies are going to be really helpful with this. We have Lean Plum, Momchill is here on our mobile marketing panel as well, and I'm sure we'll touch on that. So ultimately, what can it look like? We're seeing a tremendous amount of app fatigue in the market. There's really only a handful of apps that people engage with regularly. And for Americans, the average number of new apps that are downloaded every month is 0. So this is an app that you're in all the time. And that's ultimately the potential for it, if we can integrate the services and do it in the right experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. All right. Content 2.0, what are we talking about here? Basically, the media business has changed. It isn't the old days of when you had copy editors and writers and you would spend time researching, maybe going to a foreign office and writing something and then having it, edited and then it comes out and there's a new model. And the new model, it's a more real-time integration between production, distribution, and monetization, and data is the key connectivity to all of this. We've seen it where essentially tech is the new editor, where media companies, publishers are collecting data and analyzing signals. What's viral? Who's interested in what? What spreads on social media? Which keywords are the best? When to publish content? It's much more scientific than it used to be. And publishers are creating their own studios to make native ads, effectively changing the supply chain where they're becoming effectively the agency. Where's the agency in this picture? It's gone. They have their own studios. And by the way, we'll be talking about that in the content marketing panel at 2:50 p.m. This afternoon. Also a major issue, where is it going and how are we getting this distribution? On the major platforms. primarily Facebook and Google. In fact, this has brought up an entire issue around platform dependency for publishers. They have to decide, do we just live with our small audience on our own, or do we get on the Facebook bandwagon and be able to potentially reach billions, albeit have part of our economics and our dependency on that platform? This topic will be discussed as well in our breakout session. So here's the numbers, guys. Here's traffic. It's a Facebook and Google world. Just let that sink in. Basically, nobody gets traffic from anybody except Facebook and Google. Even things like Reddit and news sites, they're all aggregated there. It barely even shows up on the graph. So it is very much a duopoly world we live in, which again, we'll be talking about in our platform publishing breakout at 11 a.m. That is going to be a really important one. I encourage you to attend. We've seen a lot of M&A because in order for publishers or people entering the publishing field to want to enable themselves of this new DNA, a new sort of technology-oriented DNA around media, they've been making acquisitions and of increasing scale and at very attractive valuations. So the dichotomy as to whether content is a good business to be in, I think, is being answered. Convergent video. Let's rifle through this one. So this is a big one, right? Historically, digital video has been fairly dominant on YouTube. We are now, of course, seeing many other platforms be viable and scale distribution platforms for digital video. Facebook alone is up to 8 billion views a day, 85% of which is on mobile. And by the way, that stat is from like 3 weeks ago. It's probably 9 billion now on a run rate basis. We have seen mobile apps that enable live viewing totally changing the game, right? That's the one thing TV had on digital video. It had live. Well, guess what? Now digital has live. And in fact, Snapchat has built some amazing mobile-first advertising, not just because it's vertically oriented, but some of the nature of how they've developed ads, pretty amazing, groundbreaking stuff. So digital video is a wonderful market at 10 billion, growing at 30% a year. That sounds great, but it's nothing compared to television, right? $70 billion market and growing, and still growing. So that's really the honeypot opportunity. Last year was the very first year in I don't know how many years of the upfronts where the upfronts were actually down fronts. There was a decrease in the amount of dollars that advertisers committed to TV companies during the upfront season. And what we found an interesting thing when we analyzed all of the upfront presentations. Usually the TV guys feature content. It's all about the stars. They traipse out all their celebrities at these big upfront gala shows to highlight their original content. The new fronts people, the digital folks, they all say, oh, no, it's all about the data. We can target, we can give you sort of addressable ad spend. Last year, role reversal. The TV guys, what did they talk about? They talked about data, right? NBC featuring, ads or campaigns that, use credit card data to target audiences. What are all the new front guys talking about? What's Hulu talking about? Original content, baby. Escape of Cards, right? House of Cards, another great example. And we've seen ad spend follow that original content with increasing commitments of digital into original content. Quote unquote programmatic TV becomes a reality. I suppose there should be a question mark on that. We've certainly seen announcements. So there's a lot of programmatic TV in PowerPoint presentations. We do believe it will migrate, but I don't believe it's totally here today. We're going to see some interesting things, though, where TV companies and distribution companies are utilizing that data about the consumer to make that advertising addressable. Comcast is doing that in partnership, in part with the companies in the ecosystem, and AT&T announced a major initiative with Videology to enable addressable advertising across their footprint. And we're going to see more. But let's remember that programmatic TV won't follow digital, right? Yes, we want to use data. Yes, we want to use software automation to ease the workflow, but by no means are the TV folks that have this premium inventory going to put that stuff into an auction. This is going to be treated different from a monetization standpoint. And by the way, it's great to think about that digital video opportunity, but we think that smart companies are enabling themselves with capabilities to capture the entire 100% of all digital and TV spend. And of course, marketers will have to figure out what the right mix is between the two because they can be codependent in order to maximize the ROI. So folks, and again, capabilities that can help you yield manage between channels is going to become critically important. And again, we're going to be talking about that in our video convergent TV breakout panel. There's some potential game changers in TV. Regulation, big one. The FCC's got some major rules coming down. Of course, technology, changing the game. We'll see if Apple decides to get in that game or if Google makes more moves with fiber. And then, of course, content. Must-see content could potentially change the game if one of the distribution platforms, like an Amazon or an Apple or a Google, were to buy exclusive rights to must-see content. So we believe these are the three potential sort of catalysts that can really change the inflection point. And this FCC thing, let's not minimize what this means. Basically, the FCC has announced their intention to institute rules that would essentially break the set-top box and allow that data to be utilized by everybody. And of course, the question on everyone's mind is, now, go back and think about that Google and Facebook having 85% of incremental ad spend, and now you're going to release the set-top box. What do you think is going to happen? At least 85% is going to go to Facebook and Google. So I think that's going to be an interesting move. Clearly, there's major dollars in traditional TV that's fighting that initiative. And we've already seen M&A on the basis of these changes start to take place. Rovi acquiring or merging with TiVo, and how will the other strategics react? At least these three big guys are going to do something. So I would say keep your eyes out for that. And we've noticed that there are many strategics focused on this very opportunity of convergent TV. So now finally for AdTech, MarTech conversion, Brian Anderson.
All right, last but not least, we have a panel this morning. We had the same topic at a panel at DMS West in November. It was overflow capacity, so if you're interested, I would get there early. There are a lot of trends in digital marketing that we could cover today. We covered mass personalization, content marketing, mobile marketing, and a variety of trends in B2B marketing at DMS West in November. These are still very valid topics, very valid trends. We do have a content marketing panel as well as a mobile marketing panel, so we will be covering those today as well. We find it useful to kind of back up and instead of diving in the weeds, just remind ourselves, what is every marketer's goal? Well, it's to drive more revenues at the lowest cost. And what we hear over and over from the industry is, how are they doing that? It's through optimizing the customer experience, the right message at the right time to the right person. And many or most of you in the room actually are focused on this, or at least elements that enable this. One thing that's interesting to note is there's some convergence happening, in this area, but they're different in B2C or B2B. B2C, it is AdTech, MarTech that we're going to cover today in the panel. On B2B, it's really the MarTech and sales tech convergence that you see happening, but all of it is all about personalization. Again, the right message at the right time to the right person to drive more revenues. We've been using the purchase funnel for years. I mean, you've seen the one on the left for quite some time, where I think it was 4 years ago when DMPs were just starting to emerge and the industry was not quite sure, how to think about it. Well, everybody understood CRM manages, known user information, uniting the lower portion of the funnel. DMPs came along to manage anonymous data and unite the upper portions of the funnel. And we then started seeing those get adopted very readily as brands and enterprises realized the importance of their first-party data. We then noticed there were some segments that weren't adopting DMPs as readily, and they were buying these platforms called predictive marketing platforms, When you dove into it, it really depended on what type of marketing, what was their business they were in. So if you look at, on the left-hand side, think about CPG, right-hand side, retail. In CPG, you have relatively few SKUs. With that, segment-based marketing works well, and therefore blast messaging to those segments, works just fine. But if you're a retailer with, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of SKUs, you need to be more targeted, more granular. And so one-to-one personalization is really critical. And if you're creating those profiles in individuals, don't send blast messages. Make sure you're sending those targeted, personalized, messages, at the right time. But with all this, the key to it all is audience. DMP, CRM, predictive marketing, these are coming together, but it is focused on audience. And when data-driven advertising and marketing started to emerge, it really was focused on the execution side. But we're seeing these audience platforms being utilized across the whole spectrum, more and more for the planning, yes, through execution, but also for measurement. So it is about the user profile, demographic, behavioral information, and identity, how to reach those individuals with cross-device, online, offline, and location, for that audience profile. And for location specifically, we actually have a panel to discuss that. And in identity, we're going to be talking to Facebook in just a little bit on the main stage. They've been focused on people-based marketing for some time. You've seen organic efforts from Adobe, IBM, and Criteo in this area, and then acquisitions from Acxiom with the LiveRamp acquisition, and Oracle being the most aggressive, buying Datalogix, launching the Oracle ID Graph, and then filling in the data with their AddThis and Crosswise acquisitions this year. And we are going to have an identity panel, and there'll be representatives from Adobe, Acxiom, Oracle, and 2 innovative startups as well to cover this topic in depth. And this is a chart, again, we've shown over the years. What's interesting to note here is if you look at the deals we've highlighted in 2016, this wasn't done on purpose, but what are all of them focused on? It's identity, Telenor, Tapad, Oracle buying AddThis and Crosswise. So we are going to see more and more acquisitions in this identity space. And coming back to this, we are launching the sales technology LUMAscape. It's no surprise since the B2B trend we see is the MarTech, sales tech convergence, and we're seeing a lot of innovation happen now in that sales tech side. So here at Digital Media Summit, we're covering ad tech, MarTech. In November, Digital Marketing Summit, more focus on the MarTech and sales tech.